military?
Yeah. It's a tough, fine line topic.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you set a precedent of women can't do something, that's like, I feel like that's opening a gate to something very bad. But
That's a fair perspective.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's the same thing that, like the government's already done. Is like, you can't go to a restaurant. Like, if you're trying to tell me I can't go to a restaurant, I'm going to be like, what? Where else is this going to go? So, like, but I do not think that the standards should be lowered. No way. Like, because, I got really passionate about this when I was talking to Morgan about it yesterday, and I was thinking about it. I was like, this is the people that are going to be defending our country, defending my children, defending my family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I expect them to meet the standard. The enemy or whoever is not going to be less than who they are or how much strength they're going to use because of your sex.
Correct.
So, yes, the standard should be set, and obviously the percent of women in the military is going to go down because it's physically, they're not capable of getting there. But it's still an opportunity. Like, you can still do it if you can.
Yep. See, and that's what my whole thing is at too. The standards. War does not care about your gender. And when it comes to the defense of our country, I don't either. So it's just like, if I'm going to hire somebody, I don't really care what their gender is, what their race is, any of that stuff. I care about the way they're going to do the job. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, so while I think that's a valid concern of like, what you're looking at is like, okay, what is the exclusion of this going to set a precedent for? And that's a fair mindset to have. But I also want you to look at the other side of the coin and think, what does the forcible allowance of women into these clubs or into these organizations do to the organization itself? So look at it from the other perspective as well. When you have a male-only environment already, for a reason, historically, and this is, granted, you got to differentiate too between the general military and like tier 1 special forces groups.
Yeah.
That's to me the biggest differentiation, because I think anybody should be allowed in the military if they meet the standards, right?
Yes.
Like, but we don't need to have a male and a female PT standard. That's not the point of the military.
Yes.
The point of the military is to defend the country. Doesn't matter what gender you are. If you meet the standards, you can join. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But tier 1 groups have historically been male only. And people always bring up the argument to me of like, you take some of the most badass UFC fighting women or whatever in the world and like, yeah, they could probably beat the crap out of me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But overall, in general, we know scientifically that men are different from women. And the male body, especially with millions and millions of dollars of government training and thrown at it, is the peak physical fighting form on Earth today, right? Mm-hmm. And all I care about for our tier 1 special operations units is their ability to function as individuals and as a team at the highest level possible. And so far, historically, everything that they say tells me that a male environment is the way to execute their mission around the world.
I think one of the key words you said at the very beginning was forcefully. Nothing should be ever forced.
But you got to remember, that's how these things occur.
Right.
It's always like...
Right. I do not think it should ever be forced.
Right.
Although, if anything, with tier 1, I would like to see the opportunity still there. I would almost like to see, because tier 1, my mind goes to Navy SEALs.
Uh-huh.
Like, they should be open to more abuse than a male, because they need more training and hardwiring than a male does. So if you're open to doing more and harder things, then maybe. The other thing when we messaged about it, you said having the team guys being able to choose.
It's up to them in my mind.
It is. I think it's vital.
Mm-hmm.
I think about anything that's a team aspect, right? Because if you in your mind believe that one person is weaker, and I'm thinking basketball sense because that's my team.
Right.
The only team I've ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
You know it, and you're gonna play to their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And if they're
Whether that's down or up.
right,
Yeah.
so it's like if I don't have my 100% trust in somebody, and they have to cover my 6 in a life or death nation situation,
Mm-hmm.
world changing situation, it's kind of up to them. I mean, you've got your chief officers or whatever, but it's up to the guys that are in the mission.
Yeah, I agree. Which is not typically how it happens.
Right.
Usually, there's some kind of social justice movement that wants this change, and then the higher ups just kind of force that down on the actual mission achievers. It's typically how the military works.
Yeah, and I mean, the military's big chain of command authority,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, so that's it becomes a really fine line. But if you're dealing with tier 1 guys, like these are the greatest weapons on earth.
Yep.
So they should kind of be in their own classification.
Yeah.
They probably shouldn't follow the same rules as
The general
everybody.
military.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean,
Which in practice, they don't really.
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah, I think so too. But I would struggle with the opportunity not being there.
Yeah, which I agree with.
That's the only. I don't think you should. Because if someone wants to be a badass Navy SEAL, try your hardest. Like go.
Let
for
me
it.
rephrase that. In the general military, I think that's fine. But as like, if the Navy SEALs say they don't want women in the Navy SEALs, I think they should be allowed to do that. And that solely falls on like, literally, their job as an organization is to, as they see fit, be as effective as possible. Right? It's not my job as an outsider to try and make them allow any particular group of human beings on planet Earth. It's, in my opinion, it's their job to filter out who they want to accept into the training program or not. That's
Yeah, I struggle. I don't know if I agree with that fully. I think that if you can pass the test and do the things, which maybe 1%, maybe 1/4% can do that. Like the physical standards as a male. Like, not just the body weight stuff. I'm talking about you've got to be able to...
performance
standards.
standards.
You have to sit down and bench 215.
Okay, so the thing I think you're not thinking about in this equation is the actual team dynamic and what like a tier 1 group sometimes has to do. Like you picture, it's not like a basketball team where we all have to function the same on the court. The definition of their job can range anywhere from like they're going to spend 5 days with no power and no water in a second-story bedroom of a house as a team, and they're all going to have to be, pardon my French, but shitting in bags, and it's not the normal environment that human beings are used to operating in. So if those tier 1 people say, I only want to go into that environment with men, I think they're entirely entitled to that. I think that's totally...
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
You know what I mean? Because you can say there's no difference between men and women, but there is.
Yes.
There is a difference.
And if you think about this, I mean, because I've read a couple dozen, probably a dozen Navy SEAL books by now. So you can kind of tap into the psychology of these guys. And it's like, these are 100% alpha males. Every single one
Yep.
that made it through are alpha males. They're 100% top tier leaders.
Yes.
And so,
There is a dynamic that would be changed with a woman being present.
yes.
There's no way around that.
And yeah, I don't know where I'm really going with this.
It's tough.
I don't know where this picture in my mind is taking me here, and I don't know how to put it into words.
Well, long story short, it is a tough call to make, but at the end of the day, if you're going to ask somebody to give their life in defense of the country at the highest level possible, in my head, they get to decide.
Yeah. But you're also denying that right to somebody else. I don't know who is? I mean, it's hard because it's like a federal entity. Like, it's a national entity. So it's like, this is the precedent for the whole world. If it's more of like, I guess if I'm seeing special forces as like an individual, like, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a private entity?
Private, if you see that as more of like a private, like anything private in my mind has the right to do with it. Like, you have your stuff, but like in the U.S., you're setting the precedent for the whole nation and the whole world. Like, we're the leaders. But I don't know. I struggle with denying something for somebody.
Well, and I get that because it feels kind of icky sometimes. Like,
It
it might
does.
hurt some people's feelings.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what is the ultimate objective? It has nothing to do with people's feelings, and it has everything to do with killing people across the globe where necessary to defend American citizens.
Right.
So, as long as things are being observed through that objective and not making the whole world feel good, that's what's most important to me.
Right.
As long as your rubric or your metric is, does this make us more effective as a team, yes or no, then that's fine. If they want to make the decision to allow women because they think it does make them better, that's fine. Based off everything I've seen, I don't think they think it makes them better.
Right. Yeah. So, in a scenario here, if we put a woman through the pipeline, say she made it through and got to tier 1 and got into a team, and the team said no, I think that you'd have to accept that.
I would.
If you were the female and you got there
Yeah.
and they said no, essentially you didn't make the team, you got to go choose something else. And with the way warfare is trending to, it's becoming more and more less hands-on, I think, anyways. And that's where my mind went initially when you brought up this conversation. I was like, so if we have a physically worse nation over the last 20 years, 30 years,
100%.
100 years, wherever long.
Yeah.
We're in the toilet here.
Yeah.
So
We're all obese.
America is obese.
Yep.
Okay, so if we have a lot of people that are obese and they can't do the physical stuff, but they still want to help defend and protect their country, I think there should almost be a separate entity where it's more of like drone flying, and the physical standards are there, but they're significantly less. Okay, I think that, I mean, if we had science, we might have to use it. Like, this, being physically active makes you mentally sharper.
Mm-hmm.
This is known fact.
Yep.
So I think physical performance has to be somewhere. Okay, and your mind has to be tough. It creates toughness, creates resilience. So I think that has to be there. But if they're lower for like drone flying, I mean, you can't be put on the ground. You have to do everything remote. I think that would be beneficial if we're trying to get people into the military.
Yeah, I mean, and I see what you're talking about in like but in my head, to me, that only makes sense in like we drastically need people scenario, because while I see where you're coming from, in that like this goes back to the women thing too. It's real easy to take what I'm saying as saying that women are not as valuable as men, or obese people are not as valuable as fit people. It's not what I'm saying at all. It's more so all that matters is the performance
Yes.
of the entity. And I also feel like there is a degradation or a de-evolution of the entity when you lower the standards for anyone, whether that's drone operations or not. Because, and who is it said this? Don't take advice from sloppy people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can't even have your own physical fitness together, do you have the discipline to be making the decisions on whether somebody lives or dies at the end of your drone? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's at the end of the day, it's still a degradation of the standards. It's still us moving away from the entity's primary objective, which is to be the most effective fighting team possible, right? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just takes me down that rabbit hole of.
Are people's feelings going to be hurt? Absolutely.
Yes, and I know what you're saying, and because we talk about the rabbit holes of if you let this happen, this is where it goes, and
Right.
things like that. So that's where my mind automatically goes because that's where I've been.
And this is coming from somebody's perspective of like the whole purpose of the earth or like life, existence, whatever. Yes, we need to be cognizant of people's feelings and how we affect other people and stuff like that, but that's not the primary.
Yes.
People's feelings are not.
Yes.
You know, we as a country have become so much weaker when we started focusing on the way people feel.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've journaled about this a few times. Feelings aren't real because you can't see them. It's hard to be put in somebody else's place unless it doesn't happen very often that you are actually like emotionally connect with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like
you experience it.
Right. It's not that often. Maybe a few times a year where you really are like, wow, they just described me. I've just gone through that. Like you have that hit. Normally you're just like, oh, this person said they're tired. Like,
yeah. And you analyze it entirely from your perspective. Like, they don't look that tired.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. you didn't like go into a tired state in your mind. Where
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that would suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no, you just see what they're doing. You just see they said they're tired and they didn't do the job. So you're a lazy piece of crap.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's that's like the whole point of discipline though. Put feelings aside and get the job done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you on the outcome. It's the only thing you can see.
Right.
And yeah, I'm with you. But yeah.
Yo, that was just a little light topic to get us going, huh?
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about it hard. I just was telling my sister yesterday. I was like, I don't really have a stance on this.
And it's tough too because
I could see both sides so clearly that.
Yeah, obviously I don't know how many people listen to this or like how well they'll even know who I am as a person anyways, but I will be the first person in a room to go to bat for a female to be able to do whatever they want.
Uh-huh.
I believe that my purpose as a husband and a father of a female is to empower them as much as I possibly can. Like with my dying breath, my purpose is to make their lives better. So it's not that I don't like women or anything like that. It's 100%. It's just sometimes the facts are the facts and life is life, and that's the way she goes.
Clearly God had a design for males and females and their strengths for males in some areas and weaknesses in others. Like,
right.
So, if we're not playing into those strengths, what are we doing?
Right.
Why it would just that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's not an efficient way to operate a nation.
Yeah, that's 100%. I think
in a nutshell.
100%. We're very different, and it's that difference therein lies the strength.
Right. So, yeah. Wow, yeah, that was a very light conversation at 8 a.m. on a Sunday.